I had a really great question from a future cuddlist that's in our cohort this month about working in duos and if I had ever worked in a duo and if I had any tips around that. And I wanted to share that I have done duo work in the space of trauma recovery and why I think it's so stinking important. So, as a cis woman, AFAB, assigned female at birth, walking around in a femme presenting body, um, I get a lot of clients that have had negative experiences, traumatic experiences with men, right? And in that space, sometimes they get to a place where they're ready to explore what would it be like to be in the same space and feel what a sense of safety could feel like with a male presenting person, especially someone with a penis, right? Because we look at the sexual assault statistics, folks, and um, this is a really common issue. And so I've had two times that I'm thinking of real quickly off the top of my head. And I'm going to be real blunt and share exactly what I did. I've been a certified cuddlist since 2015. I've also been trained as a surrogate partner. I've done a lot of reading and self education around trauma. I feel very confident in trauma, in my trauma informed practice. And so I had a client that I've been working with for maybe a couple of years at this point. We have a really good rapport. He is one of those survivors. She had heard a lot about my husband over those 2 years, and she had the opportunity to meet him. And in that space, he offered her a hug. And she said yes, and she had the hug. And after the hug, she reported sitting in her car and just crying. Her young part, this is their first experience with a man that felt safe. And I remember she reported back that her young self said something like, wow, he felt so safe. And it was a first experience for her. And so when she came back into town to work with me, we actually made time for my dear, wonderful husband to join us for part of our session. I stayed in the room. I did all the directions, right? So this was not, I wouldn't call this a Cuddlist session. I would say this is by the time we've moved outside of the Cuddlist container because I was being very directive in the space. And in this space, I was directing. And as a director, it's kind of like saying, this is your prescription. And that is not what Cuddlist is about. And so to keep this safe, my husband is not trained, right? Some might see this as maybe even messy. For me and this client's experience, this felt completely okay for us. Um, I had him join us. I directed every placement, every hand movement. I stood over their interaction, right? And it went really, really well. And that was a very titrated, short amount of time that the client got to experience like you don't know what you don't know and wanted to know what would it feel like to cuddle with a man, right? And then same client year later, right, wanted to explore um us going to a nude resort. I've already taken her to a Korean spa so she could experience nudity in front of just women. And now she was ready to go a step farther and be in a more, gender expansive space. So part of what I love about my work and part of what I love about the body image work world is there are studies that talk about a really effective way of adjusting your body image is to be in communal spaces with other nude bodies. And I've done it myself. It was part of my own personal journey to be in these spaces, and it just normalizes so many different types of bodies. And so our next step was to go to a nudist resort together. And we haven't made it that far yet, not because she wasn't ready, but because of timing in our schedule. It didn't work. But in preparation for that, I brought in another practitioner with me who is an intimacy coach, my dear colleague and friend Alex. And I said, would you be willing to get naked with us? Because I thought it'd be really important for this client to experience a penis in the flesh, right? In a controlled environment in case, again, we don't know what we don't know. And I would rather have that be triggered in a controlled environment than in a very public space, right? And and so we did that. We all stood together, did exactly what I do with clients one-on-one, where we get to look at each other's bodies. We stand in a mirror. We talk about what's coming up, what we notice. We played some games of making sure that the client felt empowered by being able to direct Alex to move away from her, to move closer to her, to really let her nervous system know that she was in control of the space, right? And in that, we got to the point where the client asked if there was a possibility for cuddling in that space. And so we transitioned into a cuddling space, again, without clothing. I'm in the space also holding it to make sure that the client knows me, has known me for years, and that um, I'm a safety valve in that space, right? And it was such a reparative experience. By the end of the session, the client asked Alex if he could move his body closer to her body because at that point they hadn't made full body contact and she was ready to try. What would it feel like to feel his penis against her body? What could come up for her? We didn't know, right? And the good news is that she felt completely calm in that she did not have a nervous system response to it. This is what we call titrated work. And it's really important. It's really powerful, but it's really important that you're doing it with the right people that have the right understanding of what is possible, both in the positive and the negative, so that it can be dealt with in the moment. And so that's my share about how can practitioners work in duo and it be really, really effective and powerful.